Welcome to Whitespace, DCD's weekly look at news from the data centre industry. With me, Peter Judge, Sebastian Moss, and by popular request, a clean-shaven Matt Smolax, because you demanded it. This week, we'll start with the top news in data centres, which is Facebook has finally chosen where to build its 7th data centre. Sebastian, where will it be?
Well, we called it New Mexico.
Okay.
And I mean, if you've been following DCD a lot, you know they've been kind of playing off New Mexico and Utah, trying to get the best deal, doing a bit of lobbying, trying to get just good tax breaks. Utah, they went too many tax breaks. Utah didn't like it, voted against it. New Mexico were like, no, we'll pay for your water. And now, New Mexico.
Yeah, I think if you're in New Mexico, you'll need water.
Yeah,
it's pretty arid there.
Yeah, but they claim there's enough water, so definitely.
And I think even the water they're putting in is going to be useful to the other residents in the area or something, isn't it? It's quite clever going on.
They're trying to reuse it, but a lot of these things, the same with the renewable energy, a lot of that is kind of after the fact. So the data center will be there first. The greener things will some point in the future if we're lucky.
Okay. And our favourite story of the week: a loud noise took out a data centre. Sebastian again.
It happens every now and then. It's quite a funny story. You get a big bang and hard drives not a fan. They break, everything falls apart. So ING Bank in Romania were doing a test, fire suppression. They had them too close to the gas when it came out. High pressure noise. All went down, and that's happened before.
Energen is a mix of inert gases, mostly nitrogen, I think, but in order to make it put out fires or prevent fires, it's got to get through the data center very quickly. So that's like an almost explosive expansion, and that creates a shockwave or a noise. Of how many decibels?
Well, in this case, 130 decibels, if not over. Their sensors can work it out. It was too much. It's too loud.
Right. Okay. But as you say, your story kind of says it's rare. It's actually rare that we hear about it. Our people in the industry tell us it's actually pretty common. And it shouldn't be this common because it's well known. There have been white papers about it from companies like Siemens. And these suppression systems, there you can get silencing nozzles, you can make sure you place the nozzles so that they're not pointing at the hard drives and issues and things like that. But it's, as you say, it's happened before. Last year, Glasgow City Council lost a data centre thanks to a very similar incident. In response to questions from journalists, the council said it was the fire suppression system, and it got reported that the data centre had been flooded by sprinklers, which of course wasn't the case. It was in response to something overheating. Their fire suppression system went off, and that caused a lot of problems with Glasgow City Council employees getting paid and so forth. I mean, there's something about the incident in Romania that's very different from that, which is that there was no actual fire.
Yeah, it was a test.
It was a test. But there's a data centre in Glasgow that's going to be a lot more reliable, isn't there?
Yes, Fortis data centre built and managed by DataVita. It's said to be one of the largest, probably the largest data centres in Scotland. It's something like 100 megawatts they want to put in there. And they, surprisingly enough, are the first data centre provider in the UK to be fully certified as Tier 3, both design documents and constructed facility.
Yes, I mean, and this is Tier 3, so not even the highest rating, and it's the first time it's happened in this country.
Yes, which is surprising, because we sort of like, we come back to the things, like we talked a lot about last year, when the Uptime Institute wants to crack down on instances when people get the design certification and then they build it, and obviously the build facilities is different in many ways, and it hasn't been tested, because part of the constructed facility certification involves people going in there and trying to break stuff. Is it concurrently maintainable? If the power drops, is it going to be able to switch off to an alternative supply? Things like that. And these guys, are the first in the UK to do this.
Well, I think something that Uptime have told us is that they see and expect to see fewer certifications in the developed markets than in the developing markets. because it's in the developing markets where infrastructure is weak and reliability and amount of uptime is a selling point. Here we expect things to work, and being told that it's got a certification for reliability doesn't make that much difference to us, apparently.
Yeah, absolutely. And as far as I know, as far as I understand, the sort of like the thing where it's not actually valid design certification only applies to the US. So in the US, if you get design certification, you can't even, you can't issue a press release about it, you can't put it anywhere because it just like you haven't completed the process.
Yeah.
It's different in the developing world where we still can apply design certification, but yeah, it's changing little by little. We're fighting the good fight.
Yes.
Uptime.
Good. Well, I've had news about liquid cooling, which is something I like. Liquid cooling is a much more efficient way of getting unwanted heat out of servers. It's been in the offing for a long while, supposedly going to take over. But what seems to happen is just when it looks like we're going to really need to have liquid cooling, the servers, the processors get a bit more efficient. They generate a bit less heat, and it's not quite necessary. Once you get liquid cooling, it's brilliant because you no longer have to have fans, your servers can work quietly, you don't have to have them in a special environment, you can put them in closets, and these indeed might be marketed as water closets if they're water cooled, but I don't think many vendors will go for that one.
It's also much easier to do things like exporting waste heat, right?
Yes. Water is dense and has a good heat capacity, so it can carry a lot of heat, and in a form where it's easier to get the heat back out of it. So yeah, it's really good for that. This company, Clustered Systems, has a deal with Aquila, which is a technology transfer company that makes supercomputers and things like that. And what they think they've done is they've made a water-cooled system which is reliable and upgradable, which is two of the issues which have been dogging this liquid cooling systems. Liquid cooling systems can involve like complete immersion in an inert oil, which makes it difficult to maintain these things, or they can involve having to have all sorts of complicated plumbing around your servers with lots of connectors that you have to disconnect when you pull a board out because there's water going into the board or circulating across the board. Aquila has something I've seen in a couple of places where it's a cold plate and all the hot electronics on the board have metal extenders that go onto the plate to take the heat away, and there's liquid circulating the other side of the plate. So there's no liquid actually going anywhere near the electronics, and you can take these boards out and put them back in. And what the other thing about it is it's in an open compute standard open rack.
Mm-hmm.
So
21 inches.
Yeah, so that means standard kit can go into it. I think you can add standard 19-inch kit with some kind of an adapter, I believe, it's upgradable.
Okay, so upgradable in terms of you can take it apart and do maintenance on it and sort of like customize it for different.
Without flooding the data center.
Yeah, which is great. But still, I mean, it's sort of like the most impressive liquid cooling thing is just like when people, especially in Bitcoin mining, they do it a lot, but they just throw the server into a giant tub full of coolant.
Maybe. I mean, seriously though, this one, because it's standard and you can do it rack by rack, it's potentially useful for edge things. If edge data centers take off, they're little data centers close to the end user or the devices, then it would be quite useful to have, if they didn't have to have a special environment. And a liquid cooled data center meets those needs. So potentially, and I'll be seeing it because I'm going to Dallas.
And it's going to be displayed there.
That's where the launch is.
DCD
Colo and Cloud event. So Max, flywheels.
Yes. I had a very nice conversation about active power. I love flywheels. This is like an old school concept. It comes to us from like the times when everything was analog. Like it's big pieces of metal spinning at incredible speeds, and in the event of an outage, that momentum gets transformed into electrical power. Active power has created the longest running flywheel on the market today. I mean, they're saying
Yes.
it's
How long?
60 seconds.
Is that enough?
Yes, it might not seem like a lot, and 60 seconds at typical industry loads, which are about 40-50%.
Right.
So like
yes.
at full load, it's going to run for about 20-30 seconds.
How many watts does it produce for that minute?
I think it's 275 kVA.
Oh, right, okay. So, yeah, serious amounts of power.
And they can be paralleled for sort of like, if you can put them together to provide megawatts of power. But it's interesting how they've done it, because there's only two ways you can make a flywheel produce more energy. You either make the wheel bigger, or you make it spin faster.
Right, yes.
And they've gone with the speed. So the typical active power flywheel rotates at 7,700 rotations per minute.
Yes.
This one rotates at 10,000.
Oh, right.
And that itself presents an engineering challenge, because it starts to rotate faster, it heats up more. It starts to rotate faster, the ball bearings just go. And so they had to think about a lot of these things, like tweak electronics, tweak ball bearings, tweak the cooling. But they've managed to do it in the same footprint.
We should say for viewers who rush out to see one of these things, which I did when I first heard about it, prepare for disappointment, because I expected to see a massive piece of metal spinning. I expected to hear rumbling noises, but of course you don't get any of that, certainly not the noises, because noise would signify wasted energy. And you don't see it because it's sealed in a box with so that it might even be in a vacuum for all I know. I'm afraid, like almost every other technology, it's just a box without even many flashing lights on it.
Just believe in it. We'll finish with the news that, according to research carried out by CompuWare, which has surveyed 400 CIOs across Europe and US, 68% of people are woefully unprepared for the arrival of the General Data Protection Regulation.
Gosh. What's that? I'm not ready for it.
Oh, you should be. No, I mean, it's beautiful for consumers of technology. It's going to ensure that your rights are protected, that your data is anonymized, that people just don't trade it around, like a ping pong ball.
Right.
But it's also a lot of, pain for service providers, because, for example, right to be forgotten, they will have to delete data on request.
Right.
If a customer asks for it, they will have to find that data.
Yes.
And according to this research, 68% are not prepared, and 30% wouldn't be able to find individual customer data if they wanted to.
Right.
But this will apply to all 28 EU member states, soon to be 27. It will apply to businesses in the UK, because that's the official guidelines from the ICO. You should be prepared for this. We want to do business in Europe.
Yes.
And it applies to American companies doing business over here.
Right. So you can ignore it if you don't want to do any business with France, Germany, Spain, Italy, etc., etc.
Oh, yeah. And as a cherry on top, GDPR also includes increased fines for non-compliance, up to 4% of global worldwide turnover.
Right.
So, for somebody the size of Facebook, this could be billions.
Okay. And still, Facebook is very, very careful with its customer records. That's all for this week. We'll see you next week on White Space. Good.